Yeah, then you went and actually did something. All right, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. And as usual, Sean is laughing because of the stuff we say off air that's not fit for family viewing. You have to buy the special DVD collection edition where we do the outtakes, I guess. And, you get to hear Sean for about 20 minutes. All right.
It was only 18 and a half.
Yeah, 18 and a half. What are you, Richard Nixon?
Well,
I'm probably one of the mind to the Dome. I'm your host, Alan Ulrich, and I'm here with Sean Williams, and also with our unofficial third member of the show, Bob Rose. So how y'all doing tonight, gentlemen?
Real good. How about you guys?
I'm doing fantabulous. I'm doing fantabulous. Fresh off the heels of doing a prior commitment with a buddy of mine named Andrew Wiedemann, who appeared on our show pre-draft. Friend of Bob's, spoke very highly of Bob. I appeared on his podcast, link to be upcoming. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We welcome you to Under the Dome, and let me see. Let's pay the bills real quick. We want to thank Fan First Productions for sponsoring us and invite you guys to subscribe to our show on iTunes and on YouTube at Under the Dome Podcast. Without any further ado, my brother from another mother, my nephew daddy, before I embarrass myself further, Mr. Bob Rose.
Thank you guys for having me. As always, it's an honor and a privilege that I don't deserve, but I will selfishly take it every time.
He just gets tired of hearing me talk the whole hour. That's why.
Well, Bob, since you were with us the last time, I don't believe you've been on since you debuted your brand, have you?
You know what? I don't remember. At my age and the shots that I've taken to the head over the years, I'd say 50-50. But yeah, I know, no, you know what? You're right. I have not been on since the show started, but we did have a chance to preview it on here a little bit, thanks to you guys. But my show is a Wednesday night podcast called the Bayou Blitz. Now we took last week off, and we will take this week off again. We're tinkering around with some technical issues on our end. But we expect to be back next week, back with a vengeance. But so far we've done 9 shows. Mr. Williams, you were on one of them, and I hope you enjoyed yourself. Alan, I have every intention of getting you on ASAP too, as long as you're willing. But yeah, the show's going really well so far. We've had other great guests as well. John Hendricks came on once. Scott Alexander, Amy Duplessis gave us a great look at what it was like to be a sensation, and she has a great football mind as well. And our only repeat guest up to this point is Lyndon Stevens, the cornerback for the New Orleans Saints, and we had a Father's Day special with Lyndon and his dad Mac, former NFL linebacker and current coach at Cleveland Heights High School. I'm having a lot of fun doing this. I take tips and suggestions from everybody that does shows like this. But you guys have been my mentor, as well as my producer, Kyle Mosley, of course. So if you're watching, Kyle, hello, and hello to Saints Nation. Thank you for supporting all of our shows. You are the world to us.
Funny you should mention Kyle. Get a quick plug in here. Coming up on July 17th, we will be celebrating our 2-year anniversary. Much to the chagrin of a lot of people, To the surprise of very few, we have made it for 52, 104 shows. Oh my God. Have we really done that many? Actually, if you want to get technical about it, we've done more than that. Wow, I'm going to have to count now, and I'll get back to you on that. Wow.
You didn't tell me there was math on this show.
Yeah,
no one told me there was math on this show.
I didn't realize that myself, and I got ankle deep in it and said, "Oh no, I can't swim." Anyway, Bob, we thank you for joining us tonight. As always, your input and your insight is a very, very valued commodity for us. And you know what you mean to me. So we're not going to have a bromance here on live YouTube. But all that being said, we pride ourselves in bringing you all the news and notes that's worthy to print and speak and say. And if I may go to the Franklin Parish way of looking, there just ain't none. The biggest news out of Airline Drive in the past week is that the Saints have had 6 players chosen to the NFL Network's top 100 players of the previous year. And I want to preface this by saying I put about as much stock in the NFL Network's top 100 as I put in Hillary Rodham Clinton's being president of the United States. I didn't go there. Anyway, those 6 players and their rankings accordingly, beginning with number 82, cornerback Marshawn Lattimore, the defensive rookie of the year. Number 81, wide receiver Mike Thomas. Number 43, running back Mark Ingram. Number 26, defensive end Cam Jordan. Number 20, running back Alvin Kamara. And winding out the 6 Saints represented in NFL Network's top 100 players was number 8, quarterback Drew Brees. Before I go to you guys, I just want to say that any ranking system that ranks Drew Brees at number 8 and that guy that wears red, white, and blue at number 1, I give absolutely no credence in. They may say this is of the players, by the players, for the players. I ain't buying. Bob, how about you?
NFL Network makes me sick. It makes me absolutely sick, and you guys know this. It starts. My disdain starts with Ian Rappaport, but that's well known through social media. But specifically about these rankings. First of all, Sean Allen, as you know, Mr. Brady wearing the red, white, and blue, as long as he's breathing oxygen, he's probably going to be number 1 or number 2 on their almighty list. I think the thing that got me was that Carson Wentz was ranked ahead of Drew Brees. Carson didn't even finish the season. He was having a tremendous season, don't get me wrong. He deserves to be in the top 15, top 20 players of last year's performance for sure. But to put him ahead of Brees, I mean, that's ridiculous. They got the fact that Alvin Kamara, Drew Brees, and Cam Jordan were all in the top 30. At least they got that right. If you can ignore the specific numbers that they came in, at least they got that right. I don't think there's any denying that those 3 were among the top 30 of the best players in the NFL last year. But any ranking system that has Michael Thomas and Marshawn Lattimore in the 80s, are you kidding me? Absolutely. Michael Thomas has already established himself as one of the top 5 receivers in the NFL right now. And, anybody not only pays attention to the Saints, but just the NFL in general knows watching him play, this is just the tip of the iceberg. And it's the same with Marshawn Lattimore. If you're talking not even best players, but most influential players, take a look back at every single Saints game this past season and look at how that defense performed when Lattimore wasn't on the field, when he missed the game, when he went out in the, I believe it was the Redskins game in the second half, or at least he was hobbled. Kirk Cousins torched that defense, and Lattimore missed the game against the Rams. And we all remember that the Rams drove the ball up and down the field at will against the Saints defense. So if you're talking, let's ignore best players and let's focus more on influential players. To put Thomas and Lattimore in the 80s is absolutely sickening, and it's a joke. I pay zero attention to this. The only reason I knew that Saints players were ranked that these Saints players were ranked in the top 100 was because like we do, I get updates from Twitter. Marshawn Lattimore came in at this number, Cam Jordan came in at that number. Otherwise, I don't watch the show. I don't pay attention to it. Voted by the players, my rear end. That's not true, and we know that. And I'll hop off of my soapbox.
You're not alone in your thinking, man. I have to question the motivation here. Do AFC players' votes count times 3? You're talking about a once in a generation player in Drew Brees. You're talking about a man that in the coming season will not only eclipse Brett Favre's completions for a career, but will also reach the holy grail of quarterback statistical figures and passing the all-time passing yardage mark of Peyton Manning. He will pass that in the coming year, barring a absolute decapitation in Week 1 versus Tampa Bay, which we know that ain't gonna happen. Anyway, the validity of this is highly, highly suspect, and much like our guest Bob, you can credit this off and use all the taglines about being voted on by the players that you want to. You carry about as much weight with me as a snail moving down the sidewalk there. It means absolutely nothing to me. And this is something that maybe not Bob, but I know Alan will understand. That's kind of like Geddy Lee being ushered in as the most incredible bassist every year. Rush goes 3 years without releasing an album, but Geddy Lee is still the outstanding bass player. No. This is an ever-moving, ever-changing, ever-evolving entity in the NFL. And teams that are relevant now may not be relevant a year from now. May not be relevant a year and a half from now. It changes from week to week. And the fact that they continuously and continually disrespect Drew Brees as being the best player of this generation is absolutely beyond me.
Well, when y'all kept saying the guy in the red, white, and blue, that's true where my mind goes. Thinking it's Captain America we're talking about. I'm like, Captain America? Okay, I can go with that. Okay, how many people can y'all even hear that? I mean, how many people know what that is? Now, people are probably like, what the hell is that? The old Captain America theme song from the 1960s. Look, here's how this is what totally delegitimizes this list, because it's a popularity contest. I mean, let's face it, it's a popularity contest. Always has been, always will be. Where was Aaron Rodgers? Where was Aaron Rodgers on this list? He was like number 9, I think, 9 or 10, wasn't he? Yeah.
And the guy didn't even play half a season.
Exactly. Where was J.J. Watt on this list? J.J. Watt was in
top 10, I'm sure.
No, I don't think he was in the top 10, but he was on the list, and he even made about this. They put him on the list last year, and they put him on the year, even though he didn't play either year. They didn't even take that in consideration. So it's not the top 100 players of this year. It's the top 100 most popular players, and that's the way it's going to go. They're going to vote for their favorite players. And to me, that's what you list. There's no reason Aaron Rodgers should be in that list. Be made that without Aaron Rodgers, the Packers are a pretty bad team. But he shouldn't be on the list. J.J. Watt should not be on this list. Even though he is a great player, he didn't play. So you don't go on the list. That's the way it should work. Okay? And then to see the same guys year after year in the top five, to see Tom Brady in that top five, to see Le'Veon Bell, and see, it's always the same people. It's a popularity contest. That's all it is. And
Absolutely.
It was interesting the first couple of times they did it. Now it's like any award show. I don't watch any of them. It's
right.
boring. It's predictable. It feels like it's not even legitimate because they do things that they know people want to see. It would have shocked me to see the number one player be, I don't know, and I'm not going to say Alvin Kamara because he was a rookie of the year, but it would have shocked me to have, I don't know,
Nick Foles.
Nick Foles or
Nick Foles came from utter obscurity, being a backup quarterback. No one, when Carson Wentz went down, nobody gave, myself included. I can show you guys screenshots of text messages that I sent when Wentz went down about about Nick Foles playing like the village idiot in relief of Carson Wentz. And he was the Super Bowl most valuable player.
Well, and the Eagles had their line that during the postseason was everybody's wearing the dog mask, because they were the underdogs. Here they had the best record in the NFL, and I'm just as guilty as everyone else. We're all saying, man, I'd rather go play the Eagles first. That's the easy route to the Super Bowl, not playing the Vikings, And what happens? The Eagles destroy the Vikings. The Eagles beat the Patriots. They won it all with a guy that we were told, like you said, and they were going to lose because of him, but they won because of him. So, yeah, if you really did a legitimate top 10 list, Nick Foles should have been over there over Carson Wentz, even though Carson Wentz, until his injury, was having an MVP type of season.
I'm just curious. Did Nick Foles even? I don't have NFL Network. I don't watch NFL Network. Did Nick Foles even appear on the countdown? I'm curious to know that.
No idea.
I haven't heard a single solitary report of a Nick Foles sighting on this at all.
I don't. Carson Wentz was number. Well, is this a new one or the current? No, this is 2014. Wow. Okay. Nick Foles was not on the list at all.
Really?
And
you're telling
a story.
me,
in fact,
you're telling me that a player who stepped in a backup role in I want to say week 13 and guided his team through the playoffs as a number 1 or number 2 seed.
Number 1.
Number 1 seed. They were number 1 seed.
Guided his team into the Super Bowl against God Almighty himself, Tom Brady. I'm sorry, I got melodramatic there a minute. But you're talking about a guy that went through all of this and did all of that and beat the greatest of all times, Tom Brady, in the Super Bowl, and he doesn't even appear on the countdown for the entire season. Really? You know what kind of validity I give that?
And on the opposite end of the spectrum, Alex Smith's year as a player, career year with the Kansas City Chiefs, doesn't make the list. Now, he flamed out in the playoffs because he got sucked into Andy Reid. He got an Andy Reid treatment. But the fact is, he carried that team for most of the season, made that team a playoff contender. Now, of course, they traded him to the Redskins, but at no point does Alex Smith make this list. So I know they're not Saints players, but it just shows you why the Saints players fell in the way they did and how this is really a popularity contest centered around certain kinds of players. That's all. And it's really frustrating because a lot of good players did not make the list in favor of players who didn't necessarily have a very good year. This wasn't Drew's best year as a Saint. It wasn't a bad year by any stretch of the imagination, but it wasn't his best year.
Let me ask you this. You say it wasn't his best year. Contrast best with most effective in terms of one lost. Now how does that rank?
Okay. Clearly his most effective season, his best season of all time was 2011.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You break Dan Marino's touchdown passing record. You throw for over 5,000 yards. You have the top offense. You're converting over 60% on third down. This year he had his highest completion percentage. He didn't break the 5,000 yard mark, but he didn't have to. He didn't throw for a ton of touchdowns, but he didn't have to again. But whenever a team tried to on a new running game and put the game on Breeze's shoulders, he made you pay for it. So yes, it wasn't his best. That's why I'm saying it wasn't his best year, but he was extremely effective. And when he was called upon, he made you pay. He really did.
Well, and it's funny. We're sitting here, and we've all three said it before. Coming down the stretch of even last season, nobody was doubting Breeze's ability or effectiveness for that matter. We were just pointing out exactly like you just did, Alan, that statistically it wasn't among his best seasons. And we're saying that about a guy who set the NFL record for completion percentage. That's how good Drew Brees is. That's how once in a generation, like you said, Sean, that Drew Brees is. Yet we even those of us that follow the team take his greatness almost for granted. And the fact that the rest of the NFL barely even acknowledges the man's existence because of the team he plays for is an absolute joke.
Mm-hmm. If I had to pick a single play to summarize Drew Brees and how good he is, it's got to be the play against the Panthers in the playoffs where he rolls out, escapes a blitz, throws the ball 40 yards downfield to a wide open Michael Thomas on the run. And he's 37 years old, 38 years old doing this. That's just – I can't think of too many 20-something-year-old quarterbacks who are going to be able to do what he did as consistently as he did it at 37 and 38 years old. So, the man is phenomenal.
You're talking about a guy that, nothing speaks like the black and white of the statistics. And if you look at those statistics, Drew Brees has had more 5,000-yard passing seasons than the entire rest of the National Football League quarterbacks in history combined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Think about that. Let that sink in for a moment. Drew Brees has done this more than everybody else in recorded history for this league ever by himself.
Yeah.
Now, with that comes the brevity of the weight of reality of the fact that the vast majority of those 5,000-yard passing seasons was 7 and 9 seasons where the team didn't fare as well as Breeze did. But also, you look back at last season, statistically speaking, it was the least of his seasons as such, but it was as you guys alluded to, it was also his most accurate season by far.
Well, everybody's been saying for a long time, less of Drew is actually good. If Drew doesn't feel like he has to win every on his own, help him, then it would be when Drew has to be Superman week in and week out, just so the Saints win 7 games. So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword seeing Drew torch a team for 500-something yards and just make teams look silly. Like we were talking a couple weeks ago about the 2009 season, I believe. I said here that New England game against on Monday Night Football back in 2009, the Patriots do this long, sustained drive where they just eat up clock, score a touchdown to close it, I think, within 17 points. At one point in the game, back to 24 in 3 plays. Okay? First play hits Colston. Colston takes off, goes about 60 yards downfield. Second down is a running play. Third down the third play is a touchdown pass, and boom, it's over. And they're back up by 24. And it's just that's so enjoyable as a Saints fan, but you can't win a lot of football games like that. But damn, they're fun to watch when that happens.
My favorite part of that entire ball game was it was a Sunday night game, was it not?
Which one?
The Patriots game that year.
No, that was Monday night.
Okay. Football. The ABC cameras coming down in the third quarter, coming down on Tom Brady, and Belichick standing there looking at him, and Brady goes and pulls himself out of the game, and the Saints just continue to kick the crap out of the Patriots. I want to say the defending world champion Patriots.
No, they weren't. They weren't defending world champions, but it was a fun. It was, the Patriots are still the Patriots. I mean, they are still the measuring stick. No, until they went to the Super Bowl a few years ago, they hadn't been there since Super Bowl 42. 2007? Yeah, 2007. Because 2008 was Steelers Cardinals, and 2009 was Colts Saints. So,
oh wow,
yeah.
The fact that you can bring that up on demand just blows my mind.
Watched all those games.
I did too, but I don't remember them all. Interesting segue. July 29th, training camp opens for the New Orleans Saints, and everybody will be reporting. Now we get to move on to our second half, and our viewer question of the week. As we told you a week ago, now that we've entered the dead zone where there's not really a whole lot happening, we're going to entertain a viewer question for the professor, Alan Ulrich. No,
I'm Marianne. I'm Marianne.
Oh, okay. I'm Ginger. The mood.
I'm glad you said that.
I would love to be Mr. Howell. I just don't have it in me.
Lovey.
Our question for this week is: what was the Saints' most? Oh Lord, I got my glasses on and still can't see. What was the Saints' most surprising season? How about it, Professor?
Most surprising season? I'd say the 2000 season, the first year of Hazlitt and Randy Mueller, because you look at, and Bob had a great piece on the Mike Ditka Reign of Error a while back, a few days ago. At the end of that season, you're 3-13. You just gave away your entire draft for Ricky Williams. You've got no quarterback. You haven't had a quarterback since Jim Everett looked at this, looked at Dan Horowitz's playbook and says, I'm out of here. Thank you very much, boys and girls. I'm out. You had no quarterback. You had the beginnings of a pretty good offensive line. Had some players on defense, not many, a few. Glover, Sammy Knight. You had a couple of those kind of guys, but you had no receiving threats or anything like that. There was no way you expected that team to go 10-6, win the division, and be your first playoff winning team. So if I picked a team from recent memory, that would probably be my most surprising team. And it was a fun ride. It really was, because you didn't realize how good this team was, honestly, until, I hate to say this, but until Jeff Blake went down, you didn't realize how good this team really could be. Because when Aaron Brooks stepped in against the St. Louis Rams, now they were defending Super Bowl champs. Against the St. Louis Rams, other Saints teams fold. That's when the team should have lost all the rest of their games. And yeah, that was exciting, but it's over. They stepped it up and became a better team. And the team we saw that playoff game against the Rams was probably the team that played at the best, the highest level all season. And you lost Joe Horn. You had no Ricky Williams, no Jeff Blake. I mean, it was just it was just unbelievable this even happened. It really was. Bob, how about you? Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to ask Bob real quick and see how he does. And then you can jump right back in.
And I have a couple things to say about the 2000 team. But as far as my most surprising Saints team, I'll go on each end of the spectrum. My most surprising as far as disappointment goes comes in recent memory, the 2014 team. We've talked about it a lot on this show. We had high hopes coming off of a 2013 playoff berth, brought in a couple big name defensive free agents, and then the locker room just imploded in on itself. So that had to be surprising for any Saints supporter. Now, my most surprising in terms of what this question was asking, it has to be the 1987 team, the first winning season. I have a lot of good, great things to say about the 2000 team to kind of piggyback off what you said, Alan. But I mean, 87, we look back on it now and we realize how talented that team was. The Dome Patrol, of course, but even the talent that they had in the secondary and the defensive front line. Jim Mora was a damn good coach as far as regular season goes. They had Eric Martin, Dalton Hilliard, Reuben Mays, a talented offensive line, a very underrated quarterback in Hebert, but they hadn't done it yet. So the first time that they did it was 87. So that had to come as a surprise. So that's my most surprising team. But that 2000 team, Alan, like you said, they kind of came from nowhere because in 87, in hindsight, you could kind of see it coming. You could see Mora and the front office building those pieces and the talent that they brought over from the USFL when they folded. That was the backbone to that late 80s success. The 2000, you came off of a Ditka reign of error where they had zero talent at the skill positions on the offense. They had a terrific offensive line, but nobody to run the ball, nobody to throw the ball, nobody to throw the ball to. Defensively, and I will give Ditka credit for only this. He built a very, very good offensive and defensive line that Hazlitt inherited when he stepped in 2000. And arguably, I'd argue with anybody and say that 2000 Saints defensive line was probably the best in team history, even over the Mora teams. And I love the defensive line that this team is building now. But I think correct me if I'm wrong, they had 3, maybe even 4 members of that 2000 defensive line that made it into the team's franchise's Hall of Fame. Perennial Pro Bowlers, Leroy Glover, Joe Johnson. I'm flipping through here. Darren Howard, Willie White.
Norman.
They had a strong linebacking core as well. They had Fields and they had Mitchell, both regularly making Pro Bowls. But what that 2000 team did, they did it with all heart too. Yeah, they had some defensive talent, but they were still lacking at the cornerback position. Maybe Alan's favorite Saints draft pick of all time, Alex Molden, was playing one cornerback spot. Sammy Knight and Darren Perry at the end of his career played outstanding safety positions, though. The offense, you can't say enough. And I know we're all big fans of Joe Horn. What he did for that offense when he came in. Blake was an underrated quarterback, but when he went down, Aaron Brooks played some outstanding football. Again, they did it with heart. They did things that Saints teams beforehand that might have been more talented as far as the overall roster. They did things that other teams better than them maybe weren't able to accomplish. We saw some of those more talented, more teams fold in the playoffs when they were faced with a little bit of adversity. And these guys stepped up against, quote unquote, the greatest show on turf when they really got on a roll in that
Super Bowl champions.
Game. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
In my mind, even though the '87 team is my most surprising because it was the first time that they really rose to prominence, the 2000 team is right up there too because they literally rose from the ashes.
Absolutely. Sean?
Well, the 2000 team to me is I draw a lot of parallels between the 2000 team and last year's 2017 team because the expectation going into the season was that the Saints would probably be cellar dwellers and compete for the bottom end of the spectrum rather than be in any way factored into the lead in the division, much less the division championship. And that much like the 2017 team, the 2000 teams went from an 0-1 start to a 1-1. 1-1 became 1-3. Well, then this team rattled off victory after victory after victory and put themselves into a position of contention. And you while you're considering this, you have to remember that this was prior to the restructuring of the divisions, and this was a time when the Saints were in division with the Rams, Falcons, Buccaneers, and 49ers.
No, Panthers. Not Buccaneers.
Panthers.
Yeah, Buccaneers were in the NFC Central still.
Yeah. Okay. So my point being, this was a team that, if I'm just going on memory here. I think they swept the Falcons that year, and they swept the Panthers that year, and I think they split with the Rams and swept the 49ers. Did they? It was one or the other.
No, you're right. They split with the Rams, but they won the division and that home field wild card home advantage on the strength of a 7-1 record in the NFC West. So you're right, Sean. The only divisional game they lost was to the Rams,
and that was the last game of the season. Marshall Faulk kicked the crap out of him. I think he got over 200 yards total offense against them.
And much like last season, there again, the opponent, the Week 17 matchup was the Rams, and then you went into the playoffs, and a week later you've got to play the Rams again, much like us and Carolina a year ago.
Yeah,
there was just so many similarities there. There wasn't really a lot of optimism moving into the 2000 season. You had a brand new coach in Jim Haslett taking over for a Hall of Fame, Bob's favorite member of the Hall of Fame, Mike Ditka, and you had Ditka showing up for one of the final press conferences at home, saying, "I think these people should hire somebody else to do this job. I just don't have it anymore." You went from that to a new head coach, and the overwhelming the mindset moving forward with a team that has turnover at the head coaching position is that you're on a 3 to 5 year plan to try to adjust your win column. The first year, you get your new system and your new people in place. The second year, you start to compete. The third year, you start to see results in the win column. Year number 3/4, you really see what this coach is going to be able to do. Well, that wasn't the case with Jim Haslett. You had Jeff Blake come in, and I think he went 4-1, 5-1, maybe, before going down to injury and giving way to Aaron Brooks.
let me look real quick and see. I used to know this off the top of my head, but
Pro Football Reference has Blake's starting record that year actually at 7-4, and then Brooks at 3-2, not counting playoffs, obviously.
Do they?
Yeah.
Did they have an entry there for Jake Delhomme that year?
Not
no,
that year.
Jake never played in 2000.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the Jeff Blake went down against the Oakland Raiders first quarter of that game, and that was a loss. We lost 31-22, so they might be tagging him with the loss on that one. Ricky Williams went down in November on the play where he got his thousandth yard. He went down with an injured ankle, and then the next week in the first quarter, I believe it was, Jeff Blake dislocated his foot and was knocked out against the Raiders, and Aaron Brooks came in and had to finish the game. So Brooks' first start was against the Rams the week of Thanksgiving.
And 2000 was the first 1,000-yard rushing season of Ricky Williams.
Yeah.
Who a year prior, Mike Ditka had mortgaged the farm and the ancestors' farm, and the predecessor and the offspring's farm to acquire Ricky Williams. That was his first 1,000-yard rushing season. Joe Horn was, I want to say, maybe injured a big part of the year. I know he was injured in that game against the Rams.
Yeah, he went down in the game against the Rams, but I mean, he made the Pro Bowl. It was his first breakout year. He'd had some success with Kansas City, but never a featured receiver till New Orleans got him, and he went for 1,340 yards and 8 scores that year.
Yeah, he had 94 catches that year, and Colston broke that record in 2007 with 98. And then I believe it was Jimmy Graham with 99 in 2013, 99 catches. And I think Michael Thomas broke it this past year with like 111 or some ungodly number like that.
Thomas had 104, but yeah, he did break Jimmy's record.
Yeah. So Joe Horn was the first Saint to ever even eclipse 90 catches. No Saints receiver ever came close to that kind of number. So yeah, that was a huge, huge season for Horn. And I don't think he missed a game. I really don't. Here's the number that stands out for me, though. When you look at that 2000 team, the number that gets me is 66 sacks. That team had 66 sacks. That is better than the Dome Patrol.
Yep.
Better than any Saints team ever. And, you know, in the Dome Patrol years, we're talking about those.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I bet you that the average person, not yourself or Bob or myself, I'll bet you the average person cannot name not a single member of that defensive front.
Well, you know, and that's just it. Pat Swilling got 17 sacks, I think, in 91 or 92. I don't remember. I think it was 91. He got 17. Leroy Glover did the same thing in 2000. 17. Once they put Big Norman Hand, he was killing people. Joe Johnson was playing at an elite level back then. You know, Darren Howard, the second-round pick, because we didn't have a first-round pick. Like you said, we gave away so much in the draft. We didn't even have a first-round pick. So we get Darren Howard in the second round. Darren Howard contributes. Willie Whitehead, the guy you mentioned earlier, Bob, 5.5 sacks just from Willie Whitehead as a reservist. You know, it was just it was a special year, and everyone was contributing. Everyone was making plays. I think Keith Mitchell scored a touchdown on an interception against the Cardinals. You know, it was that kind of year, you know, where everyone seemed to just make the right plays for that defense to work. And it was extremely disappointing how the 2001 season kind of fell apart, because you thought that they were going to be able, just like you said with 2014, you thought that team was going to be able to build on that success with a healthy Ricky Williams and a full season of Aaron Brooks or Jeff Blake competing, and, you know, a full season with a healthy offensive line. And, you know, it just didn't happen. You know, the magic wasn't there like it was in 2000.
And it's a shame, too, because, you know, there's a lot of Saints fans that just have so much hatred for Aaron Brooks. He ended up being the scapegoat for the failures of those Hazlitt teams. And, you know, while he shouldn't skate off blame free, I think, and I've said this to many times, I think he's the third best quarterback in Saints history, behind obviously Breeze. I go Breeze, Hebert, Brooks, and I know that's causing a lot of Saints historians to lose their minds right now. But I've never wavered from that. The failures of the Hazlitt teams in general after 2000, not counting 2005, because that, I think any group would have fell apart in the face of that adversity. But their failures down the stretch of 2001, 2002, and 2003, they were as disappointing as any of those 7 and 9 Sean Payton teams, where you kept waiting for that next step to be taken, and they get right to the doorstep and then kind of fall apart for whatever reason. And I never understood why.
It's that 2002 season. That was a turning point for the Saints, because, and Jim, I should say the turning point for the Saints fans with Jim Haslett and Aaron Brooks. They forgave 2001 of the locker room drama, you know, with Willie Roaf's wife and you know, all that foolishness that was going on. Albert Cannell stealing from, you know, Deuce McAllister, Deuce and Ricky not talking to one another, that kind of stuff. 2002, you come out and you have a great offense, you have a good season, and you only have to win one game to make the playoffs, and you lose the last 3 games of the season. You swept the Super Bowl champion, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You swept those guys in the first year of that division. You know, and people were mad, and I talked about this today in my little Who Wore the Number Better, and I picked number 12 today. But I talked about this with Jake Delhomme. Jake Delhomme came in 2002, and he closed out the game against the Bucks. That's the game where Brooks got hurt. He closed out the game against the Bucks with a critical first down pass to Joe Horn to steal the game. Okay. And then the following week, they play the Ravens, and Brooks lasts a half. Delhomme comes in, and this is the Baltimore Ravens. This is Ray Lewis. This is Ed Reed. This is Chris McAllister. This is, the Super Bowl champion level Baltimore Ravens. This is not the Ravens of later on. So Jake Delhomme faces that fierce defense and wins that game too. The following week is that's when they say, okay, you only have to win one more game and you go to the playoffs. The following week is against the Vikings. Now Brooks plays that whole game. That's also the only time they ever wear the gold jersey. Was against that game against the Vikings. And then of course they lose that game because of when the Vikings went for it on fourth down and Culpepper drops the ball and then he picks it up and just scoots in the end zone untouched. The heavy lunch bunch stands around watching them. They lose that game. Brooks plays the following week against the Bengals, and it's so bad. You can physically see him deteriorate as he's out there. The longer he's out there, he can't throw a ball yards. I mean, his arm is just shot. He needs to be sat down, and you put Delhomme in there because the Bengals stunk. The Bengals were trying to give this game away. They stunk. Haslett doesn't do it. We lose that game. Okay, one last shot. You're playing the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers suck. Rodney Peete is on the team as the quarterback. They stink. I'm at this game, okay? You can see Jake Reed standing alone in the end zone, and Brooks is about the 20, probably about the 17-yard line, somewhere around that area. He can throw a bullet and hit Jake Reed in the end zone, down, puts this team away because they've got nothing. This is a horrible team. Brooks takes the ball down, checks it down, throws it underneath because he doesn't have the arm strength to get the ball down there. And we're listening to the crowd chanting, "We want Jake. We want Jake." And Haslett's getting more stubborn, folding his arms, refuses to put Jake Delhomme in there. And Jake Delhomme ends up next year. 2 years later, the Panthers in the Super Bowl. The Saints are still going 7-9. That was, to me, that was a turning point. And of course, Brooks gets surgery on his shoulder 2 days after the season's over with. After Haslett has been saying all this time, he's fine. He practiced all week. I'll never forget this line. Somebody called Buddy D. I'll never forget this. And I want to say during the Haslett years, it might have been during the Dicker years, but one of those coaches said on Buddy D's show, well, he looked good in practice all week. And somebody asked practice because the shit I'm watching on Sunday ain't that good. So if they look good in practice, that must be the game I need to watch. That was days of social media when you had to listen to Buddy D's talk show to get your Saints fix, and oh my God, that was just classic radio. How do I get tickets to practice? That's a long answer, but to me that's the key. That's because after that season, it was never the same for Saints fans regarding Haslett and Brooks. They had to get back to the playoffs to get people to wash that bad taste out of their mouth the way the 2002 season ended. And we got back, years back in 2004. Then, of course, actually wins another playoff game and advances a little bit further. He's looked at totally differently by Saints fans, but it doesn't happen. So there you go. That's to me, that's the answer.
I had actually forgotten that Brooks was hurt. I remembered he got hurt, but I had forgotten he was hurt so badly. But I mean, every single year after that 2000 season, It was the failure of all the Hazlitt Brooks teams in the month of December. The 2003 River City Relay, the 2002 Brooks Delhomme fiasco. It was something, the same heart that the 2000 team came up with time after time after time to win games that they shouldn't. That's where they failed in the 3 or 4 years in the Hazlitt era after the fact.
Yeah, I'm trying to see which game it was, if I can remember. Okay, that's 2000. Which one is the cell phone game? Okay, the 2003. Here we go. You play on Sunday Night Football in 2003. Now this is December. Now you lost to Tampa 14-7. Because I'm looking at 2003 season. Oh my God! Beat Atlanta, lose to Philadelphia. Beat Washington, lose to Tampa. You beat the crap out of the Giants 45-7. If I remember right, Brooks threw 4 touchdown passes in that game and beautiful rainbows to Joe Horn. You beat the Giants 45-7. You lose to the lowly Jaguars 20-19 on the River City Relay. That's what drove fans crazy, because you saw the brilliance of Brooks and McCarthy's offense and what this Saints offense can do when they thrash the Giants 45-7. And then the following week, you get this. Like, what the hell is this? This is not the team I just watched last week. This is like, guys who went on a bender the night before and are hungover and showed up for a football game to play, and then of course you beat the Cowboys, big deal at the end of the year, 13-7. But and the season's already over. But it just,
but it's the Cowboys.
That's what. Yeah.
Well, I remember when you guys had Joe Horn on your show, and you were asking him about it. Obviously, reminiscing over his Saints career, and to hear him talk so highly of Aaron Brooks, and obviously Horn played a lot more with Brooks. He only played a couple of maybe 2 years with Breeze. So the bulk of his Saints career, thus career success, came with Brooks. But just because a receiver rolls up big yardage with a certain team with a certain quarterback doesn't mean that he has to hold him in such high regard. But he talked about Brooks in such high esteem that stuck with me as well. That you have a perennial Pro Bowl receiver still thinking this way about his quarterback, many years later. And I think that goes a lot to say about the underrated talents. When inconsistent, yes, but the potential and the talent that Aaron Brooks had is underrated in Saints history.
I'll go out on a limb, and I've said this before because I used to be a Brooks defender. Aaron Brooks was what I thought a franchise quarterback would look like for the Saints until Drew Brees came along.
Right.
That was the closest we had to a franchise quarterback. And
if I may interrupt, at that point in time in the NFL, was there or was there not the how do I frame this correctly? Was it not the common mindset of franchises moving forward that Michael Vick was the prototype of the future?
That song and dance been playing since, as far as I'm concerned, been playing since the days of Randall Cunningham. But it wasn't so much that. Here's the thing about Brooks, as far as talent, that man had a whip for an arm. He could throw that ball 100 miles easily. That's what it just seemed like. I mean, it was no effort for him to flick that ball out there, a good 30-yard out pattern. The problem you had with Brooks, and he also could run. He could move. He had good scrambling ability. He could run for first downs. He was tall. He was strong. The problem you got with Brooks is, and this is Hazlitt's team in general, you got you had no discipline. You had inconsistencies. And it would change from game to game. You know, we didn't even talk about the backwards pass, you know, against San Diego. But I mean, that's the kind of, it would be like you'd see these brilliant plays and you put this drive together and just tear apart a defense. The next series, he's throwing balls in the dirt and he's overthrowing guys and he looks confused. And it's now 3rd and 30 because we've had a holding call and 2 false starts, you know, because the team's not focused, you know, and that's the kind of, that was the stuff that used to drive you crazy about the Haslett teams. You know, that's why it really shouldn't be all on Brooks. It was everybody. It was Jim Haslett. It was a lack of discipline Jim Haslett had on that team. But yeah, you would get that kind of stuff all the time. The defensive backs would call for these pass interference calls on every 3rd down play, you know, because they would just start grabbing people. And I'm like, just don't touch the guy. The guy ain't going to catch the ball, but you got to grab him, you know? I mean, that kind of stuff. It was a frustrating team because you felt like they could, if they just got their heads out of their asses, they could win a lot of football games. I've seen them do it, but you know, every so often they're like, no, that was something incredibly stupid. You know, 3 straight holding calls. How does that feel? You know, that kind of thing.
So 2000 was the most surprising season, and just in case you guys didn't get it from a while ago, my runner-up would be the season of 2017 that we just went through. Because I honestly, as much of a diehard as I am, I don't think that anyone in their right mind foresaw having the defensive rookie of the year, the offensive rookie of the year, the 8-game winning streak in the middle of the season. I just don't think that was foreseeable once this team started 0-2. Of course, there again, let's defend the faith and let's call them where they fell. I picked the Saints to win the division preseason. Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
So did I. So did I. 11. We both had them at 11-5, and people were laughing at us and making fun of us. And you know, meanwhile, you know, during that 8-game winning streak, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like 11-5. I'm starting to think I lowballed them a little bit. But
I can remember
right
before that 8-game winning streak went by, I'm sitting there going, boy, people gonna roast Bob for what he said on our show.
But no, I mean, you're right though. You guys are absolutely right. The way it happened, I don't think anybody foresaw that. I mean, you knew if the Saints were going to have a successful team that they were going to have to play better defensively, and these rookies would have to step up. But for Lattimore to be such a big part, the guy has to be considered one of the best 3 or 4 cornerbacks in the NFL already after 1 year.
Come on, he's the number 82 ranked player in the league.
Yeah, I forgot. But yeah, I mean, you knew Ingram would have to go for another 1,000 yards, and Michael Thomas would be a huge part of the passing game. But if you would have, in hindsight now, if you would have told me, yeah, Drew Brees threw 23 touchdowns, and you know you got absolutely 0 production out of your tight end position, what do you think the Saints' record was? I'd have probably laughed and said 7-9.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it was the way that they got to 11-5 and reestablished themselves as a legitimate Super Bowl contender, because this is one of the, if not the most balanced roster in the NFL now.
And Alvin Kamara, you know, we've kind of skipped over him, but Alvin Kamara is the difference because to me, not only you make Ingram better and causes to have less Drew Brees, he did everything that we expected out of a CJ Spiller, we expected out of a Travaris Cadet. He did, and more. You know, he picked up that joker position, and now you have fans that are saying, you know, we can get rid of Ingram and just go all Kamara, which I don't think would ever be a good idea. But
No.
You know, he picked up this offense so quickly and got involved. Once we got Adrian Peterson out of the mix, he got involved and had such a huge impact. You don't win that Washington game without Alvin Kamara. You know, I can think of several games that you really don't win and without Alvin Kamara. The Rams game, even though it was a loss, you don't play as well as you do against the Rams without Alvin Kamara. You know, and the Carolina Panthers certainly had their hands full with him. Atlanta, that Falcons game, we don't lose that game if Kamara doesn't get hurt,
right?
Because Kamara is running all over him, and then he gets the concussion. Because they had no answer for him. So, I mean, that's, to me, that's what makes that 2017 team so special, because games I can remember sitting and watching the Dolphins game and the Lions game, both games, thinking to myself, you know, these are games that the other Saints teams probably lose because they shouldn't have been in those games. So the kind of mistakes they were making, and you really shouldn't have been in, especially the Detroit game. And yet here they are, and they win because of things that you didn't expect to see happen. And that's what made that season fun, because as the season went on, they got better and better and went through that 8-game winning streak, you know, destroying the Bills. Just playing a kind of game that we hadn't seen before, and it wasn't requiring Drew to be Superman, and that was fun about that team.
Yeah, that and how close the group legitimately seemed. Not just seemed, but it was pretty much confirmed when you guys had Art Millett on your show, on your pre-draft show, and you talked to him, and he talked about how close that team was. It pretty much confirmed everything that we saw out of them. As you're sitting there, you're like, these guys are having fun. And obviously winning goes a long way to that. But they seem like a legitimately close team, like the 2009, like the 2011 teams were. And when Millett confirmed that, and you know, I've had a lot of conversations with Lyndon Stevens, and he's just gotten there. But that's what hit him right away, was how close not only the secondary unit is, but the entire group. They take the next man up philosophy very much to heart, because they are complete. The guys that are at the top of the depth chart are legitimately preparing the guys behind them. It's not a Saints Nation of paranoia like we saw out of the 2014 club, where it's every man for himself. These guys legitimately care about, they want to win first, and then they'll be concerned with statistics second. And that's what made this group also very fun to watch.
So it'll be very interesting to see how this team comes out, because on paper, they are talented enough to compete with the top dogs of the division, you know, the conference, the Eagles and the Vikings and the Falcons and the Rams. You know, on paper, they can compete with all these guys. But how this team will handle adversity, we saw how the 2017 team handled adversity. They just pushed on through and got closer. If this team can do the same thing, you get closer together and work as that unit to handle adversity. You know, it may not be what we're used to, the pretty blowout Saints teams like the 2011 team, but it's going to be a team that's going to win games and steal wins that they really shouldn't have won the game. But because they showed the heart that you're talking about, Bob, they will win. So that'll be fun to watch. I'm looking forward to seeing if that's what's going to happen.
I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. We've had such a blast bringing you our weekly madness, spreading the disease, whatever you'd like to call it. We want to thank, most especially thank my brother from another mother, and member of the Saints SCF
Canal Street Chronicle.
Canal Street CSS Canal CSC. Shut up, Bob. CSC. Bob, you tell them how to follow you.
Thanks, Sean. Thank you, Sean. Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Alan, as always, for having me on. It's so good to be a member of the Southern Mafia family. But yeah, my work can be followed at Canal Street Chronicles or on Twitter at Saint CSC. Individually, I can be followed on Twitter at Bobby R2613. Can also be followed on Facebook, Bob Rose. And I'm a member of pretty much every Saints group I think that there is out there. So please give me a shout and a holler. The Canal Street Chronicles page can also be followed on Facebook. And please, starting a Get Back with a Vengeance next Wednesday, tune in to my show, if you don't mind, the Bayou Blitz, every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time and 8 Central. And I'll try to piggyback off of the fine things that my two good friends here are doing from their Tuesday night shows.
There you go.
Alan's going to have a special guest next week besides me. Oh, great. We want to thank everyone for joining us. We invite you to, once again, subscribe to our show on YouTube and on iTunes at Under the Dome. Twitter, Under the Dome PO1. Excuse me, at Under the Dome PO1. We want to
a Facebook page, which
Under the Dome podcast.
Yes, which right now I'm putting up. I'm doing just to fill in the time between now and the beginning of training camp. I'm filling in time doing who wore it best jersey numbers, and I did. And
RuPaul will not be included in this countdown.
No, he will not, or she will not, or whatever. It is. I did numbers 10 and 11, and today was 12. I'm not going to go every single number. I'm trying to pick the numbers where we have the most story players. So tomorrow will be number 16, Kenny Stabler and Lance Moore. And so the point of this is, aside from talking, like today was Bobby Scott, Billy Joe, number 12, Bobby Scott, Billy Joe Hobart, Jake Delhomme, and which I talked about that 2002 season, and Marcus Colston. Just a little bit of history on these guys. I mean, clearly everyone's going to have their favorites. Obviously, more the current players are probably the players that wore that jersey number the best. But it's kind of fun to reminisce, and you can talk a little bit about why the teams went the way they did. And
I can vouch for my cohort here. You can read one of these articles on who wore it best, and you may not have been old enough to watch the first person that wore the number, but by the time you get through reading this article, you feel as though you watched him play.
It's a lot of fun for me to go back and look through my books and double check some of my facts and things like that, and pull out some great quotes from the past. Like Bobby Douglas, my favorite quote ever. Hank Stram at a post-game conference says, he threw to the wrong receiver 7 times. Well, why didn't you pull him out? Because I didn't think he could keep doing it. I mean, that's how these games used to be played. It's great. And,
I remember this. Somebody was talking to Billy Kilmer after his playing career was over, obviously. He was talking about when he played for the Saints, and he was talking about a defensive back. I don't recall who the defensive back was, but there was a chance for the Saints to seal the game, and the defensive back just absolutely whiffed on an interception to close it out. And he come to the sidelines, and he was all down and dejected. And Billy Kilmer, being the team leader, said, "Man, what's wrong? They're booing me." He said, "You think that's booing? Watch this." And then he ran out on the field to go out for the offense, and they booed even louder.
Oh, yeah. I got when we get to 17, I got a couple of Billy Kilmer stories to throw out there. So, yeah, it's fun.
When you get to 37, it's like it's Steve Gleason, Tommy Myers, and me.
Yeah. That's how it goes.
I wanted to reassure you that you didn't have to let present loyalties override in that.
Right.
Okay?
No Benny Thompson. No. Yeah. Screw them guys. It's those two, and that's it. Gleason and Tommy Myers. Here we go. All right.
Well, I got dismissed like off the cuff.
Oh, so they're a lot of fun. So look for them on our Facebook page, and I enjoy writing these things. It's just a chance for me to tell some old stories, and I get animated in it, so it makes it fun. But thank you guys again.
I want to publicize the
your gut.
No, the shirt. The shirt's smaller than the gut.
Oh well, that's good.
Thank you very much to Miss Jennifer Albritton for hooking me up. It's been almost as a matter of fact, it may have been. It's right at a year since we did that camp at Louisiana College, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm. A little over a year because I saw it in my Facebook memories a few weeks ago. So it's been a little over a year.
I don't wear this shirt very often because it means that it's something that's very, very special to me. Not only because of what Under the Dome represents, obviously the logo here, but because of who made it for me. It's something that's very, very close to my heart. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us. I love you all. We are nothing without you guys. Please let us know what you like, what you don't like, what you want to see, what you don't want to see. Unlisten to me. If I'm in the don't want to see part, keep it to yourself.
There you go.
My psyche can only handle so much. Alan?
Well, thank you guys for joining us. And I wouldn't say that shirt's close to your heart. I'd say it's closest to your stomach, but that's just me. Anyway, good night, everybody.